Hello, in today's video, I'll be talking about the latest knight that has been added to the game, Zelos. Now, Zelos is a Golden Shield character, and most of the time, Golden Shields, in those events, you actually exchange for resources rather than exchange for the knight himself, which is very fair because most of the Golden Shield characters are pretty average. Zelos, however, have two really strong skills, which maybe, in my opinion, actually sounds ridiculously overpowered, OP. And for that reason, you probably don't want to sleep on him. Like, I am actually going to try to get Zelos. Obviously, he is going to be very low level, so I probably won't be able to use him for a while. But I think it's probably not a bad shout to actually get this character because some of his skills are just insanely strong if the opponent do not have the right counter for him. And I can actually think of like, especially when you're attacking into someone where you know exactly what the enemy team is, you can make a decision on whether you want to bring in Zelos or not. And because a lot of time it can be an absolute game changer. And I'll talk all about that in this video on why I think he is not actually a character you should sleep on because he does have some insane skill kit. So as usual, I'll be talking through his skills, his clothes, his constellation, and also I'll finish off the video with some screenshots of how to clear his trial stage. I'm going to start off with his ultimate. Basically, I think there's a translation error, but basically the first effect is quite obvious. It knocked down the back row for up to 3 seconds, which is nice. It's a control effect, so that's always nice. The secondary effect, I think that's the one with the translation error. It says it will increase Zelo's shield by 15% on max HP for 6 seconds. However, none of his skill kit actually even do anything with the shield. So I don't actually think, and also from what I have seen in trial stages, I don't think it's increased his shield. I think it just means he's going to put up a shield for certain amount of max HP, 25% at the highest level. So which is not bad either. It's a shield just for himself though, so just bear that in mind. So it's not the greatest skill, but it's okay. You probably only want to use this, well, mainly want to use this for the control effect rather than the shield effect. The second skill is a looping skill. This one is a single target, which once again is pretty average. It does aim at the enemy with the highest attack, so I guess it does have that kind of honing effect, and it's able to decrease that person's attacking speed by up to 60% for 8 seconds. And that's actually really nice because you are the one with the highest attack is going to be the DPS, right? And you are neutralizing that DPS. So it's actually a pretty decent skill, but it's just a bit, I don't know, because it's only a single target, so that's why I found it a bit average as well. This skill, the last two skill, the last two trigger skill, absolutely amazing. And I will tell you why. The first one is a trigger skill whenever he takes skill damage. And basically, it's gonna, when he takes skill damage, he is gonna put up a stack of mucus, both on yourself and also on the enemy. What does that mean? And also the percentage is up to 10%. So each layer of mucus is gonna either reduce Zelos damage taken by 10% if that mucus is stacked on Zelos, or if it's stacked on the enemy, it's gonna reduce that enemy's damage dealt by 10% at the highest level. Stack up to 6 times. Can be purified or dispelled. However, there's no cooldown. And that is the really broken thing about this. It has no cooldown. So provided the enemy does not have actually anyone who's able to dispel or purify effects, which in all honesty, there aren't too many characters who are able to do that in the game right now. There are a few, like especially dispelling and purifying. You probably already know when you are facing up against like Aphrodite for all of those poison, etc. There aren't too many ways of countering that right now. In the future, there'll probably be other knights who are able to do that. I know that for certain. For example, like God Class Shun is able to do that. However, right now, at the state of the game, right now, not too many characters are able to dispel or purify effects. And because of that, it's very likely if you find an enemy who's not able to do that, you are going to get all 6 of your stacks. And if you actually position Zelos in like maybe in the front or at the focus of all of the enemy skill attack, you can potentially get this mucus on all 5 of their characters. And that basically means all 5 of the enemy knights is going to face a permanent 60% damage reduction, and that is absolutely insane. So that's kind of what I meant by like This is a really OP skill. Obviously, it's very much situational depending on whether the enemy is able to dispel or purify effect. However, if they're not able to, Zelos is going to be absolutely amazing against any enemy who's not able to do that and just completely change the game to your favor. So this is an absolutely crazy skill. And then this is also a very crazy skill. So this one, also the other reason why this is crazy, right now this is only activated on Zelos himself, and obviously anyone who use skill attack to target him. This is going to expand later on once we get to close on constellations. That's why it's going to make this even more insane. And likewise, this trigger skill right now it's only on himself. Once we move on to his constellation, it's going to apply to one more character in the front row. So once again, very crazy. Um, but the same with this one. First of all, it can be stacked again with no cooldown, so very similar to the other trigger skill. Absolutely amazing. And this one cannot even be purified either. And that is crazy. And this is a trigger skill. It triggers when an enemy's HP is lower than 75%. So as soon as an enemy's HP is lower than 75%, even if they heal them back up, it doesn't matter. You have already triggered that. And basically what this means is that as the battle goes on, this is gonna likely activate more and more, especially in right now the meta is very much focused on kind of like healing. So it's very likely, let's say, an enemy is dropped down to 35% HP earlier, and then they go manage to heal back up, and then you manage to reduce it back down to lower than 35%, and then you trigger again. Like, and this it doesn't even have a limit on how many times it can be stacked. So once again, this is an absolutely crazy skill. At base level, if we just look at what's on the screen, it only applies to himself, then it's pretty average because he only protects himself, but not the whole team. However, once we get to Constellation, that's going to change. So once again, absolutely crazy skill. This two skill is what I mean by like if the enemy does not have a right counter for Zelos, you're actually going to make your team so bulky. It's going to be ridiculous. Like 60% damage reduction on all of the enemies through this trigger skill, the mucus trigger skill, and then potentially infinite amount of damage reduction on top of whatever you're already able to get from mucus cover. This is just absolutely game breaking if the enemy do not have the right counter, and that's why I think like do not sleep on this character. He can be very very good, like insanely good in certain situations. All right, now let's move on to his close. Uh, First two levels about Venom Spray. So this is going to be his looping skill, which uh, reduce the attacking speed of the enemy. The first one also reduced the Cosmo, which is nice. So you basically reduce how quickly they can attack and also how quickly they can use their ultimate skill. So very nice. Second level is actually really strong because now you have focus on two enemies with the highest attack. And in all honesty, right now the meta is slightly more defensive focused, and most of the time, in your team you do not have more than two DPS. So the fact that this is able to focus on two enemies with the highest attack normally means that you are going to neutralize their entire all of their DPS, all of their damage, etc. So this is going to be very good. And then the last two skill. This is what I mean by increasing mucus cover. This is the one that can give up to 60% damage reduction. Now it can take effect on all of your allies. Now, granted, it can only be active by 50% of the times, rather than like every single time on himself. But still, this if the enemy does not have a way to dispel it, like you're gonna stack up to 60%. That's just crazy. This is basically what makes him so strong. And if you are thinking of getting Zelos, definitely get his close to level 30 for sure, 100%. And then now we move on to his constellation. First one, redo is going to activate when the HP is lower than 50%. This doesn't sound too high because you're just increasing 35% to 50%. However, like I said, there's no limit on how many times you can stack. And a lot of time, people are actually normally going to yo-yo in above certain HP threshold. And if you're actually gonna get to 50% threshold, in the healing meta right now, that's actually going to be a lot more useful than the 35% because it's much more likely for you to get someone down to 50% when they're still trying to heal themselves up rather than trying to get them all the way down to 35%. So, even though the number increase doesn't sound really high, this is actually surprisingly going to make it a lot more frequent in the actual battle. And then 9 out of 9. this is going to apply to an extra ally in the front row. Like, once again, absolutely crazy. It's not for the entire team, so which is a shame, but still, apply to one extra ally is absolutely crazy because what this is going to mean is that if you have, let's say, Aphrodite or Poseidon, who normally you want to play up front, this is going to increase the survivability of those two characters greatly. And those two characters both really need that extra defensive support. Like Poseidon is able to have the immune at the start of battle, but he has no other defensive mechanism afterwards. So you definitely need some way to protect him if he's up front. Similarly with Aphrodite, you place him up front in order to inflict poison, but sometimes the enemy is going to do too much damage, and your Aphrodite is going to be killed off too quick, and the poison doesn't stack up, and you want to avoid that as well. And that's why, once again, this is crazy because this is going to trigger naturally. Uh, as the battle goes on, especially when you have like Poseidon and Aphrodite, they're actually damage dealers. So theoretically, you should be able to wipe out the enemy's HP to less than 50% comfortably, and then you're able to apply defensive mechanism on your other front row ally straight away. Absolutely crazy character. Like honestly, do not sleep on Zelos. He is actually his kit. While I was reading it, it just sounds too broken if the enemy does not have a way to counter it.